Your boss sends you a message. 3 words. Can we talk? Your heart jumps, your chest tightens, your stomach drops in a way you can feel before you have even processed the words. And in that fraction of a second, before you have read another syllable, your body has already made a decision. It has decided that you might be in danger. Not mild social tension, not low-level discomfort. Danger. The kind your body was engineered to survive hundreds of thousands of years ago, in a world where the things that could hurt you were large, fast, and had teeth. Here is what no one tells you about that feeling in your chest when the difficult message arrives. It is not weakness, it is not anxiety. It is one of the most sophisticated survival systems ever produced by human evolution, activating exactly as intended, aimed at exactly the wrong target. Your body is preparing you to fight, or to run, and it genuinely cannot tell the difference between your boss and a predator. Let's go back to the beginning. For the overwhelming majority of human history, the threats that could end your life were physical. They were sudden: a predator emerging from tall grass, a rival from another group moving too close, a confrontation that escalated without warning. The threats that mattered most required an immediate physical response. You fought back or you ran. There was no third option. There was no sitting with uncertainty and monitoring how the situation developed. In those moments, hesitation was the thing that got you killed. So your body built a system that eliminated hesitation entirely. Walter Cannon, a physiologist at Harvard Medical School, was the first to formally describe this system in 1915. He called it the fight-or-flight response. What Cannon discovered was that when the brain perceives a threat, any threat, it triggers a cascade of chemical and physiological changes so fast and so comprehensive that the body is completely transformed within seconds. Not minutes, seconds. The adrenal glands flood the bloodstream with adrenaline and cortisol. The heart rate spikes, sometimes doubling in under a breath. Blood is redirected away from the digestive system and internal organs toward the large muscles in the legs and arms, the muscles you need to run or to fight. The pupils dilate to take in more visual information. Blood clotting factors increase in preparation for possible injury. Pain perception drops significantly. The immune system, the reproductive system, and anything the body considers non-essential in the short term are all paused. The entire body reorganizes itself around one single priority: survive the next 30 seconds. It is, by any reasonable measure, an extraordinary piece of engineering. In an ancient world, it was also the difference between life and death. But Cannon's work only described the mechanism. It was the decades of research by Robert Sapolsky, a neuroendocrinologist at Stanford University, that revealed what happens when this perfectly designed system meets a world it was never built for. Sapolsky spent years studying baboons in the wild, animals that face genuine physical threats but also spend enormous amounts of time navigating social hierarchies, status competitions, and the psychological uncertainty of complex group dynamics. What he found changed how scientists understood stress permanently. Baboons with lower social status showed chronically elevated stress hormones. Their cardiovascular systems showed damage. Their immune function was suppressed, not because they were being physically attacked more often, but because the social stress alone was sufficient to keep the fight-or-flight response running at a low, continuous level, day after day, slowly wearing the body down from the inside out. Your body runs the same system, the same hormones, the same cascade, and it responds to a terse message, a tense silence across a table, a conversation you cannot stop rehearsing, a situation whose outcome you cannot control, the same way it once responded to a predator in the grass. Here is the part that reframes everything. The fight-or-flight response was never designed for the kind of threats you face today. It was designed for threats that were brief, physical, and resolvable. You encountered the predator. Your body fired the cascade. You fought or you ran. The threat ended. And then your body recovered. The stress hormones cleared from your system within minutes. The heart rate dropped back to baseline. The blood returned to the digestive system. The pupils narrowed. The pain receptors reactivated. The whole cascade reset cleanly, and you were ready for whatever came next. That recovery was not an afterthought. It was the other half of the system that almost no one talks about. The activation was always meant to be temporary, Your body was built to spike and recover, spike and recover. A pulse of emergency followed by a complete return to calm. The reset was as essential as the surge. Without it, the system that kept you alive would begin to damage the very body it was protecting. Hans Selye, an endocrinologist at McGill University who spent his career studying the physiology of sustained stress, described exactly this process. He called it the general adaptation syndrome. Selye identified 3 stages the body moves through when under prolonged pressure. First, the alarm phase, the immediate fight or flight activation. Second, the resistance phase, the body adapting and attempting to maintain function under continued stress. Third, and most critically, the exhaustion phase, the point at which the body has been running its emergency systems long enough that those systems begin to degrade. Immune function falters, tissue repair slows. The cardiovascular system, which was designed to surge briefly and recover, begins to show the cumulative damage of sustained pressure. Memory and concentration suffer. The digestive system, which was suppressed during the emergency, struggles to return to normal function. The body starts paying the full biological cost of a survival system that was never meant to operate continuously. This is what chronic stress actually is. Not a character flaw, not a failure of resilience, a physiological system doing exactly what it was designed to do, in an environment it was never designed for. And here is the counterintuitive twist. The most powerful component of your fight or flight response has almost nothing to do with your muscles. It has everything to do with your attention. When the response fires, your brain does something remarkable. It narrows. It locks onto the perceived threat with extraordinary precision and filters out almost everything else in your environment. In the ancient world, this attentional narrowing was life-saving. When the predator appeared at the edge of the camp, you did not need to be thinking about the meal you were planning, the relationship tension you were navigating, or the memory of something said to you 3 days ago. You needed to see the predator. Only the predator. Your entire cognitive system collapsed to a single point of focus because in that moment, the predator was the only thing that mattered. That same narrowing happens to you every time the response fires. The difficult message arrives, and suddenly nothing else fits inside your head. The unresolved situation sits at the center of your attention, and everything peripheral blurs around it. The conversation replays. The outcome you can't control loops on repeat. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is treating this modern threat the same way it would have treated any threat, as the only thing that matters right now, because for most of human history, when a real threat appeared, it genuinely was the only thing that mattered. The mismatch is not in the system. The mismatch is in the world the system now inhabits. You live in an environment that produces triggers without producing resolution. The predator appeared and either fled or was defeated. The conflict with your colleague continues for weeks. Your body was built for threats with clear endings. Modern life is full of threats that don't end. They evolve, they compound, they sit unresolved in the background for months, and the fight or flight system fires in response to each new development, never quite completing the cycle, never quite returning to the baseline it was designed to return to. The tightened chest, the shallow breath that doesn't go all the way down, the shoulders that sit higher than they should, the jaw you find clenched when you notice it, the stomach that never fully settles, the mind that keeps running through the same scenario looking for an exit it hasn't found yet. These are not symptoms of a weak nervous system. They are symptoms of an ancient system still scanning for the door, still looking for the path through the tall grass, still doing the job it was built for in a world that no longer offers the resolution that job was supposed to end with. What Sapolsky found in his baboons is what you experience every time your system stays activated past the moment the threat appeared. The damage is not dramatic. It accumulates slowly, in the background, in the places you can't see, in the inflammation markers in the blood, in the shortened telomeres at the tips of chromosomes, in the cortisol levels that were designed to spike and fall, but instead hover slightly elevated day after day, year after year. There is something worth sitting with in all of this. The system that is making you anxious about a conversation you have not yet had, that is keeping you awake rehearsing outcomes you cannot control, that is making the space between your shoulder blades tight. That system kept your ancestors alive long enough to have children. It kept those children alive through ice ages and migrations and conflicts and famines and predators that no longer exist in the landscapes you walk through. It ran, generation after generation, through every threat the species encountered, and it worked. The line did not break. You are here because this system was good at its job. What it could not have prepared for was a world where the threats don't move, don't resolve, and don't end. The next time your body fires the cascade over something small, a notification, an uncertain outcome, a conversation that hasn't happened yet, you might feel it a little differently. Not as proof that something is wrong with you, but as the oldest machinery inside you, doing precisely what it was always meant to do. It is preparing you. It has always been preparing you. The only thing that changed is what you are being prepared for. Your boss sends you a message. 3 words. Can we talk? Your heart jumps. Your chest tightens. And 300,000 years of survival engineering quietly, faithfully, and completely unnecessarily gets you ready for a fight that is never going to come. If you want to see more content like this, don't forget to follow and leave a like.